It sure is bright here on Hellfire Beach. Oh no, pool party emotional support demon. Don't forget your little sunglasses. There you go. That is... There you go. That is so cute. Man, that's so much better. Have you noticed that he has like a little tan line for the glasses? It's so freaking cute. I cannot wait for summer. Good evening, laddies, lasses, and lassos, and welcome to the click. You smell absolutely astounding today. And don't let anyone else lie to you and tell you otherwise. On this channel, oh my god. On this channel, we do have a little bit of a saying. You cannot spell trauma without mwah. And that is why we love the subreddit TraumatizeThemBack. Have you ever had a bully or a Karen or someone mistreat you or be mean in some way and you wish you had the perfect clapback or revenge strategy? Well, this subreddit is all about that. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy some sweet TraumatizeThemBack moments. Made my racist coworker uncomfortable after he made a joke. Oh well. Oh no, don't make the poor little racist uncomfortable. I, 23F, have been at my job for about a year. I am one of the youngest in my department and one of the few women of my background. I usually ignore workplace banter, but one coworker, Steven, 34M, has a habit of making subtle comments that don't sit right with me. At first, it was small things. He would ask where I am really from, or joke about how I must be great at handling spicy food. I never made a big deal out of it, but last week at lunch, he decided that apparently I am lucky they probably needed to hit the diversity quota. Okay, that goes kind of beyond any kind of justification for workplace banter, right? You don't say that to someone in front of the office with all the colleagues like, hey there, you probably didn't deserve your position and therefore have no qualifications for what it is you're actually doing. You know, that sounds so bad, man. Come on. I am guessing he always does this sort of thing because everyone let out a good old chuckle. Man, those coworkers suck. I almost hesitated. Then I let it go and said, maybe. But it's crazy how I got promoted so fast when you've been in the same role for like 10 years? Maybe they have a quota for that too. I am guessing everyone got uncomfortable because the room went dead silent. How did they get uncomfortable about that, but not the initial comment? Like, if that's the kind of banter you're dishing out, how could you be flabbergasted when you get that clapback? Are you kidding me? What is with these sort of people that go into the boxing ring and throw so many punches, but then when they take a hit themselves, they're like, oh my god, no, I'm just a precious little bean. A racist little bean. Steven looked at me like a kicked dog and said that he was just joking. Well, maybe, Steven, I was also just joking too. It's so funny, isn't it? I didn't really care to hear it, so I just smiled. Later, my manager told me Steven felt humiliated and that I should have been more professional. What do you mean he felt humiliated? He was the one throwing humiliating comments to begin with and got a clapback. How are they upset about like the clapback comment and not the initial like racist statement? Are you kidding me? I said I responded the same way he spoke to me. Should have said, hey, I am just joking too. Can't you take a joke? Steven deserves to feel humiliated. I didn't think you'd be so sensitive. God, you need to learn how to take a joke. You are prettier when you smile. Oh my god, that needs to be the next thing the next day when you come into the office and Steven is looking a little bit low and you go up and be like, you look prettier when you smile. You should just smile more. Oh, that'll be the ultimate power move. Please do that and do a follow-up on the subreddit. I would love to read about it. Pretended to be gay so that two loudly homophobic guys would get arrested. Man, this is the sort of queerbaiting I can get behind. True story that happened a few years back. Sitting at a bar, 3 beers deep with a group of heterosexual guys, I should add, friends I hadn't seen in a while. 2 guys at the table next to us start using homophobic slurs for no reason, ranting about how gay people are disgusting, etc. We couldn't let that fly and asked them if they had a problem with it, and that we were in fact homosexual ourselves. Guy 1 suddenly jumps on my friend, breaks his glasses, and tips our entire table and drinks to the ground. To this day, we believe they were on some sort of drug, as they had a truly weird and aggressive behavior. A bartender, 6 feet tall, a metal guy with a beard, arrives to the scene to hear, "This guy just jumped us because we are gay." Guy 1 keeps being aggressive. Bartender immediately breaks his nose with a punch. Police arrives to the scene. Bartender corroborates our story and police arrests both guys. Had to testify at the police station so that my friend would get his new glasses reimbursed. We kept the same story all night, so the 2 guys got a hate crime charge. Oh, that is beautiful. Oh, that is so good. Hell yeah. It's not just like disorderly conduct or assaulting people at the pub. Now it's a hate crime, baby. Enjoy that on your record, you little pile of poo-poo. Now this is the kind of gay baiting I can get behind. Get behind. Oh, yes, indeed. We're all getting behind this sort of queer baiting. Yes, indeed. You know what would be the icing on this poo-poo cake, right? It's if the people who got arrested found this post. They can't prove that they didn't actually hate crime anyone, even though they thought they did, so to say. And they're just sitting there steaming at being debated into a hate crime. That would be so good. I love seeing poo-poo people like this just steam and get themselves into trouble. That is absolutely amazing. Normalize this. Normalize this kind of stuff. Hell yes. My dad claimed to be Mexican and severely humbled the lady. My mom and dad were at my mom's company's Christmas party a few years back. There were drinks flowing, and in the elevator on their way to gather her things with a few colleagues, a lady started to go on a rant about Mexicans. You can imagine what she said, and none of it was flattering. My dad has black hair. He also worked outside very often and is quite tan despite it being winter. Mind you, his heritage is straight up English and Irish, maybe a hint of German. He listens to a rant while the elevator moves, and just before they get off, turns and says, "My dad is Mexican." This lady went dead white and stumbled over herself trying to apologize. She proceeds to apologize to my mother for about 6 months. That is something I've seen repeated in stories like this. I don't think I've seen it myself in person. Maybe it depends on where you live. I don't know. But it seems to be kind of common that very Karen-esque characters will come up to people they deem like their own race or something and complaining about another group of people. But then it turns out that sometimes the person they're ranting to, or they make it up. This is also kind of like Mexican baiting, isn't it? It's like the previous story, but less extreme, right? And then they all of a sudden backtrack and be like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." What exactly are you sorry about? Are you owning the thing you said that was absolutely awful because you think you're gonna get clapback for it? Are you only saying it in the company of other white Karens? Man, these kind of people are weird, man. Every person in the elevator, aside from this lady, knew my dad was not at all Mexican. Some of them were, though. Ooh, so all of them refrained from telling her that he lied. She ended up leaving the company, believing that she had mortally offended her coworkers, actually supervisors if I remember correctly, husband, with her racist ranting. And I hope she thought twice before she opened her mouth again. I hope she actually learned something from this and not just learned to hide it better, because people like this will very often talk crap about people if they're not in the same room. Look at that, you can't even be racist with confidence. Disgusting. What's worse than a racist? A spineless racist? As a Mexican, your dad is officially an honorary Mexican now. Oh my god, he should have a pin for that. Hell yes.
Why does she get to work from home and I can't?
At my job, we are supposed to be in the office at least a couple of days a week. I am in almost every day as that's my preference, while others stick to their working from home days quite strictly, which is also fine. But I have one colleague who I work with closely that previously came into the office but now gets to work from home full time. And I will add she is great at her job and a joy to work with. Slowly, it was noticed by a few people that she was never in the office, and they started making comments on how it was strange and she was so lucky, must have found a reason for an exemption and had special arrangements. They would look at me and wait for me to say something negative or complain. Ooh, the office gossip when talking about the weather is no longer enough. But I wouldn't say much other than that she works from home due to personal reasons, as it's not my info to share with others. And she is always available virtually if people need to meet or chat about the project. And then it sounds like she's managing her job just perfectly fine. It's not like she's working from home while, napping with like the work computer technically turned on or watching movies or something. She's actually working, so there's nothing to complain about. We were having a larger Teams meeting recently, and one of those no-see Nancys raised it in a passive-aggressive way, saying how she hasn't seen her in ages, and she's always at home, and it would be great to see her in the office sometimes, as their team all have to be in a couple of days a week. Ah, the beautiful passive-aggressiveness.
Oh my god, we totally just miss her. I want to see her in the office. It's not at all that I'm just like weirdly jealous about someone else's work schedule.
I sat there, sipping my tea, while my coworker dropped the bomb that her husband has been having seizures due to a rapidly growing brain tumor, and he cannot be left alone. She went on to add how she wishes she could get out of the house more often, but can't even leave for a coffee or groceries unless one of the kids is home or she can get a friend or family member to stop by. And that the other option was to go on leave, but felt it would be a burden on the team and she can still get the work done from home. Let's just say the horrified looks people had and awkward silence has ensured that hasn't come up since. But please, said Karen, I just wanna frick around and not find out. Oh, is that too much to ask? Yes, it is, Karen. Yes, it is. I am sure she wishes that too. I had to pick my kiddo up from school early for a 2-hour drive to a doctor's appointment. As I'm waiting for her to come into the office, the secretary says to another employee, I wish my mom picked me up for a McDonald's and spa day when I was in school. I enthusiastically replied, I am sure daughter's name would love that too. Unfortunately, we're headed to hospital to check the status of her brain tumor. What's the wrong with this secretary? Who has even mentioned McDonald's and spa? Like, where did they even get that from? I swear to God, some people, man. Oh my God, I'm so jealous about this doctor appointment and cancer. Wow. Snapback at protesters. I went to Planned Parenthood when I was in between insurances and had a cancer scare. I'm good, came back negative, just something they were worried about based on my ultrasound and family medical history. Well, they had me come in to discuss the results, which seemed bad to me, so I was already anxious before I got there. I had to pull past a group of protesters to get to the parking lot, and they were all trying to shove brochures at my car and holding signs of dead babies or whatever. As I got out of my car to walk into the clinic, a man shouted at me, "You have other options!" Pissed, I looked up and snapped, "Oh great! You have another option for ovarian cancer? Because I would love to hear it!" My dear Redditors, I witnessed that man's mouth snap shut and stay shut while he packed his stuff to leave. Oh my God, I can just imagine one of these protesters breeding with one of those people from those bullshit Facebook groups. They're like, oh my God, cancer is natural and it's just your body detoxing. And then they breed together and then they're protesting outside of hospitals being like, oh my God, look at this sign. It's a picture of a dead tumor. This is what you're doing to your little tumor. Poor tumor. I think these kind of protesters are just the kind of people you dislike heavily, even if you've never actually met them in person, right? It's just like everything I hear about it is always bad and unlikable and presumptuous. And a lot of the times, one fascinating thing, I was reading this in a video a while ago, is that a lot of people, when they're protesting, will come in themselves through the back door or bring, for example, their teenage kids when something has accidentally gone wrong, for example, with contraceptive or what have you. And they'll be like, oh, but you don't understand my situation. It's like a really commonly reoccurring phenomenon. I even remember this article was talking about a lady who was running like an anti-abortion thing at a campus. And then she came to one of these offices to have an abortion herself and be like, oh, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Because I don't want it to tarnish my public image and like career in this anti-abortion organization. Oh, it blows my mind. It's all just hypocrisy, man. It's all just hypocrisy and like moral grandstanding, but no one actually does it themselves. It's all bullshit. As a matter of fact, I do want you to call the police. I have been volunteering for a charity walk event for a few decades that hosts anywhere from 600 to 2,600 people. I am regarded as being knowledgeable, or even more knowledgeable about the event than the charity staff who are ultimately responsible for the event. When needed, I am trusted to act in the event's best interest and do the right thing. The event was cancelled due to COVID for a few years, but 1 year after it reinstated, I had a chance to stand my ground against someone who was not part of the event complaining about the event. The starting area of the walk is in one of the parking lots of a large city park, which is at the end of a dead-end street. The park area is open to the public, but the charity has a permit to use the area and the parking lot to stop people driving into the start area. The parking lot, we blocked off the entrance to the one-way street at an intersection, and in years past we had police posted at the intersection to assist us in controlling and directing traffic away from the entrance. About halfway through the event, a guy comes riding his bicycle down the road with his son and asks to speak to someone in charge of the event. I tell him that she was busy right now, speaking to a news outlet, and asked if there was something I could help with. I wanted to park in this area, and you're preventing me from doing that. You can't block off this road. Me? Looks around at the hundreds of people walking around in the parking lot. Sir, yes we can. We do that because we need to protect these participants. Besides, there is nowhere to park down here. No, you can't. You're preventing people from using the park. Yes, we can. We've been doing it for decades. No, you can't. I wanted to park here, and you've stopped me from doing that. Sir, I don't know what else to say, but we've been doing this for years. We have the right to provide a safe area for these people.
No, you can't. Do you want me to call the cops?
In the past few years, I have come to the realization that when people say this, it's a last resort to get their way. They think you're going to back down because of the implication that you're doing something wrong, and that you're going to get in trouble with the police. Yes, the police are gonna come and arrest these 2,600 people doing this charity walk that they have a permit for doing. Yes, indeed. That's totally what's gonna go down here, male Karen. Regardless of if you're doing something wrong or not. I paused for a second or two while I processed the situation and resolved to not give in to the fear of the police being called on us, and calmly replied, actually yes, I do want you to call the cops. There was a pause as he was processing my response, which was obviously the opposite of what he expected or wanted. In the first moment, he was slightly shocked and taken aback. In the next moment, he was visibly angry that he was not getting his way, and then without another word, he angrily rode back away with his son. That moment was such a confidence booster for me. Honestly, I think that's a really good way of dealing with Karen-esque behavior, because this is such a way of like,
Oh my god, I'll call the cops because the police are my personal enforcement to get what I want.
But always when they're called, sometimes even the Karen themselves are arrested. I remember seeing this viral clip, I think I had it in my main character video, of a Karen going ham in a hotel reception, and she ends up getting arrested even though she's the one like, oh my god, I'm gonna call the cops, blah blah blah, but then she gets arrested instead because she's just going around screaming and threatening people, so it's kind of funny how that works out. So I suppose just calling the bluff is surprisingly useful a lot of times.
Why do you always wear a cardigan?
Years ago, before I moved jobs, I was a teacher for a couple of years. I wore the same thing to work every day. Slacks, a loose top, and an open cardigan. I had a bunch of them, not the same one every day. Some of the other teachers made fun of my uniform. Man, I thought the story was gonna be like, 15-year-old kids and be like, why are you wearing a shirt like that? But these are the grown-ass adults in the school. Are you kidding me? They never matured past the point of 15 either? God damn. When they would ask why I always wore what I did, I would just reply that I liked it. They would roll their eyes and I would go back to whatever I was doing. Oh my god, how are these supposed to be like good teachers for kids when they're like mentally 15 themselves? Near the end of what I knew would be my last year there, one of them started in again with,
why do you always wear the same thing?
I stopped what I was doing and asked her if she really wanted to know. She laughed and said she did, so I told her. When I was a kid, one of my cousins was pew-pewed in a school pew-pew situation. That is horrible. She bled out. It was really hard for me and my family. I ended up learning all I could about how to help someone who has been pew-pewed. I always wore a cardigan to school, so if this happened here, I would have something to put on the wound and hold pressure. The other teacher just said a quiet, oh, and nobody asked me again. And that is also such like a stupid thing to say in the first place. This is the sort of like low-key bullying strategies I would expect from, 14, 15-year-olds.
Oh my god, why are you wearing your hair like that?
These are adults. I'm assuming all these people are like in their 30s or something. It's like, man... Are you kidding me? Some people really did peak in high school, and some of them never left even. Oh my god, they peaked in high school and they never left. Cancer doesn't wait. Back when I was 14 in high school, I was diagnosed with skin cancer. Nothing really crazy, it was caught early, and so removing it in an outpatient setting was the treatment plan. Now, I had the hard-ass type of teacher for my last period, taught math and with a real stick-up-his-butt kind of guy. Enjoyed lecturing students for small things. For example, yawning wasn't allowed in his class because
it is something you do when you're bored, and it's disrespectful.
You get the picture. He didn't really like me because I wasn't doing well in his class, and he took it as a personal affront, I guess. Well, I ended up having to miss his class a couple of times due to procedures to remove the cancer. And he was livid. In front of the whole class, he told me,
you do not need to be missing my class with your grade this low. Pick a different class to miss.
So I, with stitches still on my arm and back, I told him,
sorry, guess I'll tell the cancer to wait next time.
He went silent, didn't say a damn thing, and went back to teaching. He didn't yell at me in front of the class after that. Still was mean, but left me alone if I missed class for an appointment. I'm also kind of surprised the teacher isn't informed about it. I mean, he sounds unbearable to begin with, but it also sounds like it's some communication issue in the school if, like, the school teachers and personnel themselves don't know when a student is out for, like, a doctor's appointment versus sick or, like, whatever. So it's not like both the teacher is like kind of miserable and bitter and just difficult to deal with. And then it sounds like the school is just bad at communicating as well. No, I really cannot have kids. I am on Facebook dating. Mwah. I met this guy, and we started talking for a little while he asks me what I want. I said, a partner. He said, I want to get married and have kids. So I reluctantly informed him that I can't have kids. This is how the conversation went.
Why can't you have kids? Don't you want kids?
I want them desperately, but I cannot have them.
Why not?
I had cancer and had to have a hysterectomy.
God can make all things whole. You can have kids.
Well, God can't grow me back my uterus. I really can't have kids. Block.
Oh, you don't have a uterus but want to have kids? Have you tried praying a little bit? I've heard that totally grows back uteruses.
I don't think he was traumatized, but you definitely dodged a bullet.
This is like so many red flags baked into really few messages. The density of red flags per message is really high. I found the conversation, and it's actually worse than I remembered. Bear in mind, this was a conversation we had after maybe 2 hours of talking. It won't let me upload the image for some reason. He said that he wanted to be with me and married to me after like 2 hours of knowing me. And also like, knowing is a very strong word considering I'm assuming you haven't even met yet, right? Oh my god, there's like a billion red flags. Pray the cancer away and get married after 15 text messages. Hell yeah, online dating is great.
You got divorced a few years later, Grandpa.
My great-grandfather is 86 years old and I am 20 years old. When I turned 19, he told me teasingly,
You know, back when I was your age, I had a house, was married, and already had a kid on the way.
To which I replied,
You got divorced a few years later, Grandpa.
I heard my grandmother, his second wife, snicker in the background as he patted my shoulder in a fair enough way. It's small, but I think it was very funny. I was married by then. Well, to be fair, Grandpa, you were also divorced twice by 22, so, you know, there is also that aspect to it. This one is kind of funny, right? It's just like family clapback and banter. I sort of like this one, yeah, it's kind of good. Neighbor wouldn't quit revving his engine. I made his backyard all but unusable until he quit. Man, I despise noisy neighbors. I've been so unlucky with it. A couple of years ago, I had a neighbor who insisted in their backyard to like drill out a pool out of solid rock. And they hired like a bunch of workers to do it with these like handheld like, you know, those machines. And they did that for like 8 hours a day. For 3 weeks straight. It was absolutely insane. I even measured it with a decibel meter and it was like above any kind of like legal noise levels in that kind of area. Absolutely wild. So horrible experiences with noisy neighbors. Like, don't get me wrong, like some noise is obviously fine. Like, you know, if someone is renovating a bit or, you know, painting the house or smacking some things or, you know, driving around or kids or whatever, like noise is fine. It's to be expected. But when it goes beyond a certain point or when it's like super intentional, like very, very bad for the neighbors, but you don't care about making it better, that's when it kind of crosses a line, in my humble opinion. Okay, since the person like screaming satanic memes at midnight. No, I'm kidding. I don't record at midnight, okay? It's fine. Last spring, my old neighbor, who was a saint, sold their house and moved away. The people that moved in were awful. The guy, who we will call Pete, owns some sort of new black Mustang that sounds like it has no muffler. And he revs it up and down the subdivision streets in the evening, literally 5 days a week, when a lot of people, myself included, sit on the back porch and watch TV during the summer. It is relentless. Oh my god, can you imagine that every single day of the week? What is this man-child? This guy also drives up and down the state highway that is on the other side of my house doing the same thing but louder, because it's a 55 miles per hour speed limit. You can hear it for miles, and he has friends over regularly in the backyard. And they sit there on the weekends and some weeknights, revving up the car. It truly is so loud that you cannot do anything but wait for him to be done. There was a big Facebook conversation in the homeowner association group. Will this actually be the one story where the homeowner association is the good guys? Oh my god, let's see where this goes. And a bunch of neighbors politely asked him not to do this. Pete's exact response:
I pay a lot of money for this house. I'll do what I want in my own yard, and the streets are public.
Oh, hate people like this. Oh my god, man. Well, I didn't like that, so here is what I did next. I know from 15 years of living here that anytime I have a fire on the side of the yard next to Pete's, the smoke is guaranteed to travel in the direction of Pete's house. I know this because I couldn't ever have a fire when my old neighbor was outside, as he would literally fill her backyard with smoke if ever the wood had a hint of moisture on it. So I moved my fire pit about a dozen years ago to the other side of my house and towards the road, so I could be a good neighbor. And as you know, Pete letting me know that he wouldn't quit making noise reminded me that I just loved having my fire pit right in the middle of my backyard. It took me a single weekend to dig up the pavers and blocks, move them back to my preferred spot, and get myself a fire going in my new fire pit. I just needed to wait until Pete had people over. I made sure the inaugural fire was a good one. Pete had friends over, it was a nice day, and so I started the fire. Got it just about started, and then I added all the wettest, grossest wood I could find. And about 10 minutes later, Pete and all his friends were visibly upset by the stench, so they all went inside. They came back out a little later, I added more wet, nasty wood, and they all went inside again. I kept that up the entire day, and then I added a bunch of grass clipping to keep it going overnight. The next day, still smoldering, still smelling awful. I put out a Facebook post on the Homeowner Association website that let people know I would continue to utilize my fire pit as often as possible, so they could bring me their lawn scraps. I had about 20 people respond in a few hours saying their clippings were all mine. This is the kind of Homeowner Association stuff I support. Petty revenge at nasty neighbors. Hell yes. I kept that fire going. My dogs are good alarms, and they rush outside anytime anybody is in Pete's backyard. So I would hear the dogs scramble, go out, and add more clippings. After about 3 weeks, Pete and his wife came out and very kindly asked me what was going on with the fire pit. She very politely informed me that her hair would smell like a campfire if she went into their backyard for any amount of time, and they could smell it coming into their house through their ductwork. He said I was making it hard for him to enjoy his backyard with his friends. They asked me if I could ease back with the fire, because I probably didn't know that it was impacting so much of their home life. I looked at him and his wife, and I said it was clear that sometimes we didn't recognize how big of an effect something could have on our neighbors until they told us about it. But then I said, as objectively as possible, that I normally live by the same I'll do what I want in my yard thought process as Pete does. I have a right to enjoy my yard. I looked at Pete dead in the eyes and said, and I know you support that because of how the conversation concluded about your car, right, Pete? He looked at me like I scratched his favorite CD. He knew what I was doing. And his wife looked at him and it just dawned on her. She said she gets it and we won't hear the Mustang anymore. I said, thanks. I took a gamble and put out the fire right after that. It was the right call. I haven't talked to them much since. I'm not too concerned about that because I haven't heard the Mustang since either. Oh, that's some good petty payback. The one time you're on the Homeowner Association side out of all these horror stories, right? That is absolutely beautiful. And it's also mind-boggling that it sounds like the wife wasn't part of the conversation initially. She was kind of like in the dark that people had actually been complaining so much about this kind of car, right? So it was probably like she that actually made her husband stop in the first place. At least the wife was reasonable in the situation. Imagine how horrible this could have went in the long run if like both of the neighbors were absolutely unhinged. Man, oh my god, but at least it ended very happily, which makes me happy.
You know those will kill you, right?
Just this morning, I was at a 7-Eleven picking up some snacks, water, and a Red Bull for the day. Construction worker. I try not to go with energy drinks, but some days coffee just doesn't cut it, and today is one of those days. As I am paying, this old lady behind me make the noise a couple of times. I glare in her direction as I'm thinking she wanted something that's out of stock or something. That's when she goes,
"Oh, you know those will kill you, right?"
gesturing to the Red Bull can. That's the goal, I fired back, hoping they get me before the cancer does. Now Reddit, I do not have cancer. What I do have, especially before my morning coffee, is a petty attitude and a dislike for strangers getting up in my business. Old lady gasped like a fish out of water as I smiled, took my items, and left for work. Ah, that's so nice. Those small, petty clapbacks that might teach people to not get into other people's business for no good reason. That's good. That's good. That's like appropriate Traumatize Them Back. I love that. Traumatizing racist busybodies. My husband and I are foster parents. We're both white, and in my case, so white I practically glow in the dark. Running joke in the family. Anyway, our foster son is a biracial teenager. He is our son in every way that matters. My husband and our son like to go food shopping together. The busybodies have finally stopped, but it was a fairly regular thing for them to sneak up to my husband and whisper to him that our son wasn't his. Especially if I was there too. It's a running joke between our son and my husband to traumatize the busybodies as much as possible. Husband,
What are you saying about my wife while our son cries?
or our son will start
Cry and ask if he's adopted.
busybodies just turn red and run away. It's entertainment for everyone.
It's like people have never heard of step-parents among countless other things.
It's such an interesting thing to bring up, right? It's like, it could be step-parents, it could be adoption, it could be like literally anything else. And they're like, oh my god, you know your wife's cheating. Like, what are you expecting to happen? You want to cause that kind of scene? Maybe these kind of people are just drama hungry, but they don't think it through. So when they actually cause the scene that they sort of want, they can't deal with it. That is so interesting, isn't it? It's like the people that are most invasive and boundary pushing with these kind of stuff are also such incredible cowards. It's so weird how that correlates.
I deserved it. I deserved it.
In junior high, I broke all my toes on one foot and had to sit on the floor during gym. I was relatively new to the school and trying to behave since I had left my last school for fighting. I was drawing on the ground and there's this kid. He had been giving me guff in the hall since I started, but to be honest, he was bad at it, so I found it pretty easy to ignore him. This day, he decided to cross the line. He walked up, half-squatted, and stomped on my picture, twisted, and ripped it. Before he could even sit up straight, I had nailed him right in the nose. Just a swift punch I didn't even think before it happened. Blood starts pouring out of this kid's face. Whoops! The kid's covering his face, getting blood everywhere. The teacher presumably saw the whole thing go down because he was already running across the gym. As the teacher approached the kid, held his bloody face and put his palm up, waving it back and forth as he stepped in between me and the teacher. I deserved it! I deserved it! The teacher looked mad confused. The bell went off and I skedaddled as fast as my crutch would take me. Never did get in trouble for it, and that kid never did bug me ever again.
Mad respect for the kid to immediately learn his lesson.
Man, what a surprisingly ethical bully, if you will. They started the BS, got smacked around for it, and they're like, okay, no, I started it, they shouldn't have any for it. Like, is this ethical bullying? Oh, that's amazing, man. Sounds like a kid that was a bit misguided, but maybe has a good heart deep inside. I hope they stop that behavior. You know that if this was like a cheesy movie, they would be best friends in season 2, right? It is definitely that sort of vibe. I did, in fact, need to go to the ER. One fateful day, I was visiting my boyfriend, August 2020 to be exact. So COVID was still majorly affecting everyone's day-to-day lives, which plays a role later on in the story. Anyway, I started getting extreme chills. I was under 3 blankets, with my boyfriend trying to warm me up with his body heat, and couldn't stop shaking, and to the point of my teeth clattering. I was absolutely freezing. Him being 17 at the time, I was 18. We started dating my senior year of high school, everyone. His mom put her foot down around 11 and said, look, I'm sorry you don't feel good, but you need to go home. After trying to stand, I ended up aggressively vomiting in the bathroom while shaking, half delirious. His mom again said I needed to go home. Well, fun for me, I couldn't get my legs to work. My boyfriend managed to drag me up until I could deadlock my legs, and then I shuffled out of his parents' house with him supporting most of my weight. That doesn't sound like the kind of situation where it's like, oh my god, shuffle home and maybe pass out on the way home. That sounds like hey, let's maybe take someone to the hospital for a little bit of a checkup now. I would like to mention that my mom was very serious about lockdown, and my boyfriend was the only person I was allowed to see for 6 months, after a month of not seeing anyone at all. I was about to leave for college, so my mom okayed me for going to live with my best friend for a couple of weeks, on the condition I get COVID tested to go home. So I was going back to my friend's house in this condition, not actually home. My boyfriend had to pull the car over for me to vomit 3 times in the 10-minute car ride there. I called my mom and told her I felt like I was dying. Something was seriously wrong with me and I needed to go to the ER. She said no. Do all the parents in this situation just suck? Like your own mom sucks, the boyfriend's mom suck, all the parents suck. Said it was probably due to me missing 2 doses. 1 day's worth of my mood regulator, 200 milligram dose by the way, I proceeded to go back to my friend's house. And since her much older boy toy at the time had been staying there for the entire week, I was left to my own devices. I thought I was going to die that night. I spent the entire night freezing and shaking, vomiting to a bucket, and literally having to crawl through the hall when I needed to use the bathroom because I couldn't get my legs to support my weight. My mom refused to let me come home, told me I promised to get COVID tested first. I told her I couldn't walk, let alone drive 30 minutes across town to get a rapid same-day test done. Man, all the parents in this situation just suck ass. That is absolutely astounding. She basically told me, tough. She refused to get close to me, let alone in a car with me, and drive me because she was now convinced this was COVID. I suffered for 3 more days until the vomiting stopped. While weak, I drove across town, got the negative test, and went home. I started vomiting again that night. So this is 3 days of just vomiting and feeling like ass. You know, during peak COVID vibes, I'm not sure if that was a thing anywhere else, but here at least you could order like COVID tests, at least for like 6-month period or something like that were literally driven to your doorstep and delivered by like a taxi driver with a face mask, right? That was a thing. So if you were sick, I actually got COVID during that period, I could order a test to my home, make sure that I had it or didn't have it. In my case, I did have it. So it's also astounding that the parent didn't just like drive it to the house. It's like, oh my god, you feel so sick. Even if the parent is so concerned about getting sick themselves, just like leave the test on the doorstep. You know, that would be so easy. Why are you like, oh my god? And then you're also letting the daughter go out in public, go to the pharmacy and stuff, and then potentially infecting dozens of people. Like, this is so dumb on every single level. Oh my god. I started vomiting again that night. I also now had access to a thermometer. Thermometer. Oh my god. But my fever wasn't high enough to warrant going to the ER. 2 more days of bedridden, legs barely functioning, vomiting constantly. Finally, my boyfriend came to visit because he recognized I wasn't contagious. Something was wrong and frankly was the only one who seemed to care. My fever hit 105. What is 105 in not freedom units? Fahrenheit to Celsius? 40.5 degrees. Alright, that's like peak flu fever. That is really bad. Then you're basically knocked out. He finally stormed into my parents' bedroom and said, I'm sorry, but she seriously need to go to the ER. My stepdad resigns to be the one to take me. And despite COVID rules, they saw I was bad enough upon walking into the waiting room that they let him go back into the room where I got examined. Blood work and IV. The doctor knew what was wrong almost immediately in hindsight. The first thing to do is take your urine, but they also did blood work and put me on IV fluids. Doctor comes in and bangs on my back, and I'm about to jump off the table. Still told me nothing, but that I needed a CT to confirm his suspicions. Results are all in. He comes back to tell me my urine was so bad I had to have one of the worst UTIs he'd ever seen. CT showed I had a severe kidney infection. Oh my god, man. And my blood work showed an extremely low white blood cell count. He looked me in the eye and said, it's a good thing you came in when you did. Another 24 hours and you would have been septic, and the survival rate would have been less than 50%. I spent 3 days in the hospital on intravenous antibiotics with a week of the strongest oral ones that you can get after getting discharged. One of the first things I said to my mom was, so I guess I really did need to go to the ER all along, huh? Needless to say, my mom takes my illness and ailments almost too seriously now. Oh my god, overcorrecting in the other direction. Oh nah, man. I'm just surprised by this story, how like none of the parents in this situation seem to care. And even if you're so worried about like infectiousness with COVID or whatever, just deliver one of the tests to the doorstep, right? That was like a super easy thing to do back in those days. I don't understand why that was not an option. Why do you convince your like super sick daughter to drive to a pharmacy to do it where they're like in contact with dozens of other people? That seems like be the worst option if you're like so worried about containing this thing. So yeah, bad vibes all around, but I'm glad you didn't die from septic. That's a good thing. Well, laddies, lasses, and lassos, I do hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed having you here, you wonderful, beautiful beings, and keep an eye out for the little birthday demons coming out now in the beginning of March. Take care and have an amazing rest of your day. Mwah. Mwah.